And greetings and welcome to the QCast. This is season 5, episode 33. And we're going to shift away from basketball here for kind of a really fun, important conversation. Exciting news at Illinois Wesleyan here in the last week or so. And that we have our third football coach in the last 70 years. And as announced last week, Jared Williamson is the new head football coach of Illinois Wesleyan. And Jared, I'm sure it's been a whirlwind for you, but I can tell you this after talking to a lot of alums and a lot of buzz going on. We're really, really excited you're here. How's everything going for you here? I think this is maybe day one or day two for you officially, but how's everything going?
Unbelievable welcome, and everything we remembered, and even better in terms of just the welcome reception, the kindness, everything that reminded me of how special a place it was. I think anytime, I knew I really enjoyed my time at Illinois West, and it was not like that was something I discovered when we left. I was just excited to become a head coach when we left. But the further you are away from a place, you kind of realize and appreciate it maybe even more. And we would come back for scrimmages or my talks with some of the staff members and even the other athletic coaches. And so coming back, you realize how special it is. I remember during the process, I walked into the Shirk Center with athletic director Mike Wagner, and I just looked at it and I just said, Mike, don't let anybody tell you they can't, they can't bring someone to this place and recruit and say, hey, this isn't a special place. I just immediately went back to how special it was, and for so many just different reasons, but the most important reason is the community and people on campus. For alums like yourself who laid all this groundwork to continue to make it special. And I think the school's done such an amazing job of passing how special that network is along to each class. And you just see so many classes strung together that are so just, you know, there's nothing like being a Titan to them. And it's just an unbelievable feeling being back here. And that combined with, as you know, the energy that Dr. Zenger has brought to campus
Yeah.
it's awesome.
And for those that don't know, Illinois Wesleyan's new president, Sheahon Zenger, I've had a chance to be around him just a little bit through the early basketball season. And, you know, Dr. Zenger he was the AD or yeah, the AD at Illinois State. He was the AD at Kansas. And so just to give you an idea here of, there's a president that also really gets where athletics fit in a university. And so that's a great excitement that's happening as well. And Jared, I want to just ask you a little bit about your kind of your path at IW, and then ask you a little bit about your path in general. You were at IW from 2006 to 2010. The first 2 years you were a grad assistant. You got your master's degree at Illinois State in 2007. You stayed on where you were the offensive coordinator, and I think you were also the quarterbacks coach during those final 2 years. Um, 2009 was a special season. That was a 10-win season. That was an NCAA round two season. I end up ranked number 9 that year. So, I mean, you were around the program when things were really good. You've seen the program be really good. Talk about your experience back 2006 to 2010 at Illinois Wesleyan football.
Yeah, so when I got here as a GA, it ended up being great for me in terms of experience, but coach had just moved on from his offensive coordinator. The two graduate assistants had taken other jobs. So outside of the seasonal help he had, it was just him and Mike Wagner. So when he hired me, he really needed somebody to go to work. I I was given campus tours and I didn't know how to get around campus. I was eating lunch with people that I had I mean, moms, and I always say this with Craig Ladd, who, played on the national championship baseball team, was also our starting quarterback in '09. Him and his dad, we were having lunch and his dad was telling me how, special of a player he was going to be. And I remember we joke with Craig now. I was like, that's exactly why I want him here. And I had just read about him before we went to lunch. So it was a whirlwind of an introduction to a coach that needed help. He was filling staff out. Um, we went 3-7 that first year, and it was the third straight 3-7. And so coach knew there was just some work and some change need to be done to get things back on track. He assembled an unbelievable staff. All these guys I'm still close with to this day. And in '07, we were able to win the conference or part of the conference, obviously co-champs. And that class was that freshman class in '06, that '07, those sophomores really grabbed the team and ran, and they were the seniors in '09 that helped us. The only game we lost, I'll never forget homecoming Milliken, because I had my first baby on Friday. Me and my wife had our child, and we were talking about if the headset's connected to, it was called Broman at the time
Right.
to help Coach Esther in the game. So the young men on that team, I think, really for that class coming in and saying we're going to get this thing turned around, and obviously Coach putting a great staff together. So I learned so much from them. And that team, you're right, was a special group, and we took a foreign trip together. I think when you look at the statistics of those foreign trips, I think the conference championships follow because you're just such a close knit group
Yeah.
after those trips. So that was my experience in that time when Coach Wagner decided to get into athletic administration full time. Um, that opened up a full time spot, and Coach Murray at the time was the offensive coordinator, but had an extensive defensive background with Coach Eash before he had left to be a head coach at two other universities. So Coach Eash moved Coach Murray back to defense and hired me on offense. And then after 2 years, I went to Robert Morris to start the program.
Yeah. So you left to become a head coach at a startup program, Robert Morris, which at the time was NAI. At the time, Robert Morris was an NAI men's basketball powerhouse, starting up football. Robert Morris later merges with Roosevelt. That's in 2020. Roosevelt. So basically, Roosevelt is a D2, NCAA D2, playing in that GLVC, which is a great conference. And so you start up the program, you end up winning 2 league titles. You're in the top 25, 9 of 13 seasons. You had 15 wins versus other top 25 teams, whether those be NAI or D2. So you had a ton of success there. Just before I kind of ask that question a little deeper of like, okay, why leave somewhere you're doing so well? What was the experience like coaching Robert Morris / Roosevelt during that stretch of time?
It was a whirlwind. We were again. It was a young married couple with one baby going up to Chicagoland, and um, starting the program is one thing, but it was so unique because Roosevelt and Robert Morris are on State Street, Wabash, in Michigan. They are in the heart of
Right,
Roosevelt hosted the draft,
right,
so we are in the heart of downtown. So we had to build a facility off site. So we built a football facility off site and organized the transportation to and from. And that means you organize everything that comes with that, whether it's meals or laundry, you name it. And so obviously academic progress is important when those kids are spending extra time commuting. So it all started with me for the man who hired me. Again, you talk about the energy Dr. Zenger's bringing to campus. The same kind of gentleman who was just unbelievable hired me, Michael Wild. And he, you wanted to work for him no matter what he was doing. He was just a leader of that capacity. So he had a great vision for athletics. And again, you talk about that '06 class at Wesleyan that really led the way. It was my first class. That was a special group of young men who bought in and set the foundation. Um, and so we were able to have not only quality young men, but quality young men from within 50-mile radius of campus, because Chicagoland and Illinois high school football to me is just so deep. And so most of our players, kind of knew of each other or had competed against each other. And kind of the momentum just started building, and the kids really bought in and did a phenomenal job. And I was really blessed to work with some phenomenal men, tons of Illinois Wesleyan ties. Many graduates were on the staff there, and so yeah, was able to do that and continue. And then at one point, got into athletic administration as well. And then you talk about COVID and the merge and a lot of different moving parts,
right.
but it was a phenomenal experience. And the uniqueness of starting your own program, especially at a young age. I was 27. I just thought it was the experience or the ability to learn from, good and bad things you did was such a positive for me as I got older.
Right.
Not that you're trying to make a test run or a test site or case, but when you have somebody who really supports you as your boss, that you're not looking over your shoulder, and you're able to really work and try some things and figure out how this whole thing is going to work with the logistics. And Mr. Vile did that for me, and I'll be forever grateful. But it was a wonderful experience, wonderful group of people, and I did learn from Al Brule, the legendary basketball coach you mentioned for
Yeah.
Robert Moore. He's a tremendous man.
Yeah. My parents who are in the Chicago area, they used to follow that NAI hoop scene up there because they were St. Xavier people. And my mom went to St. Xavier. And so Robert Morris and St. Xavier would play. And my dad used to always talk about how amazing that Robert Morris group was during that era under Coach Brule. Um, so the Titan job opens up, and I usually this is one of these things. I think this works whether you're in sports or corporate America, but kind of sometimes you have an idea of like, hey, if that opportunity ever presented itself, I might be interested. Was it one of those things, or was this something that really piqued your interest just when Coach S retired, or how long had you thought that maybe you could find your way back to Illinois Wesleyan someday?
Well, I would say it was more of your first inclination to where, hey, if this ever was a possibility, we would really love to, me and my wife and our family, we would love to look into it. Again, our time here, it was a sad place to leave, but again, I didn't have any other professional goal of being a head coach. I didn't care where it was or what level. I just wanted to be a head coach, and so that was an opportunity, we sought after. But again, it was such a special place, and staying connected with Coach Esh over the years, always a little bit taking the temperature of how long he wanted to do this, and where I might be at or we might be at was always a thought process, and again, always an intriguing place to where, hey, if they would ever consider me a possibility, I would always really look into that opportunity.
And here we are. Obviously, I know the caliber of the candidate pool. I was in Belton, Texas, with the Titan men's basketball team last week, and Coach Wags was there, AD Wags, and he wouldn't tell me who he hired. He told me he hired somebody, and he told me when the announcement was coming out. And I'm aware of the pool that applied for this thing, and I know how excited Wags is about getting it right, and about you and your family coming to take this job. And it's got to feel like, what does it feel like to make it through? Obviously, coaches around the country, Jared, are looking at this like that Illinois Wesleyan football job. That's a great job, and you come out of this with just piles of applications. A little bit, I don't know, a little bit humbling to kind of get through that process and be the guy.
I consider it such a blessing. I'm not sure if you know this. I was in a really, really bad car accident in 2022, driving home from a homecoming game. A drunk driver crossed the median, and I have just realized, I knew before, but the good Lord really teaches you lessons when you're going through things like that. That everything happens for a reason, and it just I can't really put my finger on it to tell you that going through the process, it just really felt like this was the right time, the right fit, and the right place. And I kind of think Coach Wagner, probably started to feel the same way at some point during the process. I had told him, I just turned 42, and I've been able to be a head coach for 15 years, and
Right.
so I feel like I still have a lot left. I feel like it's the right time and the right age, and obviously really familiar recruitment in the state where we want to make Illinois Wesleyan, the private school of Illinois, for student athletes and for everybody, but specifically for student athletes in football. And so familiarity with the programs and obviously the community. And I had talked to some players I had coached prior to visiting with Coach Wags, and just tried to get the pulse of, what was the alumni group looking for, and what were they happy with, what did they think they needed, and just the whole process was, I really feel like, again, I don't want to say a trial run, but it really gave me a ton of experience to really figure out how I wanted to run a program, how I would do it here. And it just all came together perfectly. It was a true blessing, humbling to say the least.
In terms of the CCIW and kind of the task ahead of you here, it's great timing we're doing this today, because this is the first day of the off season in Division III. And last night on ESPN, there's North Central winning their third national championship, defeating Mount Union. They've done an unbelievable job of building their program, over the last 14, 15 years, to this point where they are regularly in the Stag Bowl. And I know it's crazy to think that the Titans in short order can get themselves to that kind of position. That's hard. Just in terms of the average Titan fan, Jared, that wants football to be in the conversation, and wants football to be really competitive in the CCIW and trot out good teams with good kids and compete. How do you attack the task in front of you of getting the Titans to where they were, many, many times? And I want to say we shared the title in 2018. It wasn't that long
Yeah.
ago, right? So how do we get the Titans back to that point where we're really in the mix in the CCIW?
Well, with the current group of young men, whenever they get back to campus here this week, it starts in the weight room. And to me, it starts with, you have to create as little gray area as possible for them to understand what it takes to be successful. I often tell people, a lot of these young men confuse goals and standards. Goals you can kind of just reset tomorrow, but standards, there's a consequence. And they have to understand that that's where you win football game. It's what you saw on ESPN last night was phenomenal to watch, but that was all earned in the weight room, in the walkthroughs in the spring. That's a buildup. That's the old eating an elephant one bite at a time, And so it starts there with the current players, and then obviously we have to get caught up in recruiting. And to me, anytime there's a coaching change, no matter where it is or who it is, you're always going to be kind of playing catch up in recruit. We've got to get caught up in recruiting.
Right.
When you bring student athletes to this place, it's hard to say no. So to get as many of these quality student athletes on campus, but to answer your question, to build obviously with Illinois and local phenomenal student athletes, and just to continue to develop those. This is the purest level of college sports, in my opinion, right now. The transfer portal affects it the least amount because the kids
Right.
are interested in getting a degree, and in 10 years being in each other's weddings or working for each other or helping each other's businesses. And that's just a phenomenal culture to be around. And so when a lot of these high school kids are getting left behind, unfortunately, with that portal and with that transfer process, we need to be there as one of the top options. And I think if they look at the alumni network again, people like yourself, other schools might discuss that as, oh, you can join this network. This network at Wesleyan is real, and the experience they get on campus is real. So painting a picture for those student athletes that this is not a 4-year decision. It's a 40-year decision for them. It's a lifetime decision in terms of an investment in their success. And the same way, I remember doing it from '06 to '09, just getting quality young men here and continuing to stack class on top of class is really, I think, how you become super competitive, and you're able to compete with those top teams that you mentioned.
And talking recruiting, I think what's great is that not only do you understand the recruiting landscape from being an assistant coach here back in the day, but boy, to have been a head coach in the Chicago area, where I'm positive that you were going head to head as an NCAA D2 and NAI before that with the North Centrals and the Augustanas and Carthage and other scholarship schools for that matter. And so with Chicago as sort of a recruiting home base, that it's an awfully good place to be able to pull kids from, isn't it, Jared? I mean, I've always thought that one of Illinois Wesleyan's advantages in every sport is the location of Bloomington and anchored by Chicago, not to mention St. Louis, and just kind of draw 200 miles in every direction. But Chicago's a good place to start, isn't it?
Phenomenal. The programs, the coaches in the Chicagoland area, again, Illinois in general, it's unbelievably competitive. They're organized, and I think what's phenomenal is, and people might not know this, there's a ton of Titans in those high schools coaching and teaching,
Oh yeah.
and they are bleeding green. They are wanting to send their students that they know or recommend on visits and get them up here. I just think if we just got to, in my experience, we've got to get it organized. We've got to stay ahead of the game. We'll play catch up a little bit this year, but then we'll have to get on the juniors right away. And there's just a grading system that I've used. I really believe in terms of these young men and their film and their academics. And we've talked about athletics. We've talked about the academics. Also, this is a pretty unique social atmosphere to be getting a small school education, but your social life feels like you're going to a bigger school. It's Illinois State in town.
Yeah.
And so I just think if you can get people to see it, just get people here. And obviously the genuine people on campus that I refer to that make it a community that I love and remember. And that you probably throw a rock and hit an alum. There's somebody who is here who went here. It's hard to say no, and it's hard to say that's not a good fit for me. And so we've got to, somebody asked me if I was on the radio this morning, if I was nervous. Not one bit, because when you're so excited about an opportunity and you know how much work you have and you want to get that done, it doesn't even come into your mind. You're just anxious to get as many student athletes as we can on campus, introduce them to our current students, have a meal with their parents, just let them know in all the three major categories, academics, athletics, and the social environment, what this opportunity has to offer them. It's a pretty hard place to say that's not a good fit for me.
Just a few more things, and I really appreciate your time. We're even out in front of the official press conference, which is coming in 3 days. So I really appreciate your time. I know can't imagine how busy you are. First, just so people know, your wife's Kelsey, and you guys have 5 kids: Abigail, Gloria, Isaiah, Samuel, and Evelyn. I hope that I got those all right. Well, I'm just curious, what's the age from oldest to youngest there, Jared?
So we are 15, 13, 11, 9, and 7. So about every 19 to 22 months. My first time here, I was a little skinnier and I had some hair. So those coaching, starting the program and the kids. And first of all, my wife is just unbelievable. She started out as a nurse here, and the kids they're such a blessing. I just had actually somebody from the staff at Wesleyan here was in my office earlier and was asking me about something, and kids came up and they said, "Well, I'm not sure." I said, "Have as many as you can. They're such a blessing." So it's a crazy time with all their activities, and me and Kels, we're like two ships passing in the night. We barely see each other, but it's such an enjoyable time. And I know they're excited for the ninth as well, because we've told them stories about living down here and the experience of Bloomington Normal, but it's exciting to show them a little bit more and obviously, begin to look for a place to live and stuff like that.
And I know they'll like it. I lived in Bloomington after I graduated. Let's see, I went to school for 4 years at Illinois Wesleyan. I think I lived there another like 16, and it's a great place. Awesome sized town, great people. Again, close enough to Chicago to go whenever you want, St. Louis, whatever. It's a great place. Another thing I want to ask you about your background, which I know shaped you, is you're the son of a U.S. Air Force veteran, which meant that you moved around like crazy. The list of places that I have that you lived as a kid: Germany, Mississippi, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Alaska, I believe is where you went to high school. So like what was that like moving all around the country as a kid?
You know, my parents did a great job of just making us realize that home wherever was where our family was, and that's all that mattered. So when the military said, "Hey, your next stop is this," as long as we were together, it was good. So I'm the oldest of three. My younger sister Rachel, my youngest brother Andrew, who special note was the first ever graduate from my Robert Morris football program. He transferred and finished his career playing for Big Brother. Um, so wherever we lived, they just did a good job of, we were able to find a place, and wherever we were all at, it was family. But my wife having friends that were at her second and third birthday party, so she didn't move at all, right? Friends for life. I always thought that would be cool, and we're able to have friends all over the world, which she thinks is cool. So I think at the end of the day, there were good and bad things about every place. And that made it pretty easy to adapt. And I think obviously for a future coach, it was good training.
A final question on your background. You were a really good player. So you went to Maryville State University, which is in North Dakota. You were a three-time captain there. You set single season passing records for total yards, completions, touchdowns. You were a 3-year starter. Obviously, I always wonder people that were quarterbacks in their playing days. Are you an offensive minded coach, Jared, or is that a term that exists? Or talk about that a little bit and how much your playing days influence how you see the field.
So I have spent the majority of my career more time on the offensive side for sure. But in our plan to win, just that we'll show the players here when we gather. Number one is play great defense. Um, you have to play if the style of football. If you want to be tough, physical, run the football, play great defense. That I was telling people, you're not necessarily training to beat whoever's the lowest in the league by 40 or 50. You're training to win those tough games versus the best teams on the road in the rain in November. So defense and physicality, they don't care about those things. They travel. So great defense and physical football is what I really believe in. Even the quarterback under center and the I formation, just the physicality of being able to play football like that is what I believe in. But I have spent personally, time on the offense as a play caller. But I would say to win a championship, you've got to play great defense, and you've got to be physical and control both run games.
As far as your staff goes, I'm sure you're still kind of working through just any updates on where you go and kind of nailing down now that you're in, nailing down all those key spots in your staff.
So I feel like we're not far away. We're still we have a couple coaches that have been hired that are still going through the paperwork process. We've got a couple interviews that have happened, discussions that are happening on the back end. For me, filling those coordinator positions and those assistant positions are crucial right now to go back to what we kind of first talked about, because we need to get back on the road and recruit, and we need to get in the weight room and have a high intensity and really good performance in there. And so we're almost finished. I feel confident here in the next few days we will get finished, and everybody will be through that process. But I'm excited about people always ask me, what do you look for coaches? Men of character, really good teachers, super competitors. And if they can have all three of those, I know parents will be happy to have their young men around them for 4 years.
Just a couple of things on mine, and then I'll ask for any final thoughts on your side. First of all, I want to say thanks to Coach Eash. When I was a freshman in 1989, coming to school as a 17-year-old kid, Coach Eash was always really, really good to me. I remember taking theory and practice of football with Coach Eash, which I learned more about the game than I ever thought I would know. And every time I've seen Coach Esch over the years, he's always been really good to me. I was having coffee a few weeks ago with a classmate of mine that there was a great football player, DJ Rossini, and we were talking about this job coming open and just thinking through the caliber of kids that Coach Esch brought to the program, guys that were my age, like Chris Basilian and Rob Zavonar and DJ and Bill Havley and Chris McLeod. So, and that has extended to this very day. The caliber of kids that Coach Esch brought in were phenomenal, and he definitely made us all proud. So, thanks to Norm, and also congrats to North Central. Amazing, amazing accomplishment on the field, and carrying the flag for the CCIW and what they have built is incredible. And I know as Titan fans, we hope that we can give them a scare sooner than later. And Jared, it's been great to get to know you a little bit. I know people appreciate this, and they'll get a chance to watch this and get to know you a little bit better. I'll give you the final thoughts on the QCast here today. We'll have Titan Football Nation tuning into this. I think we'll have D3 Football Nation tuning in to see who the Titans hired. What would you leave folks with today here on the QCast?
Well, first, I want to thank you for everything you do for Division III athletics and Illinois Wesleyan for sure. It's pretty amazing. The reason I was able to finish the Wheaton game the other night was because of your updates, and so I thank you for that, and thank you for your time today. Um, you know, we just you mentioned the quality of young men Coach Esch brought in. At the end of the day, if players leave the program and leave Illinois Wesleyan as productive citizens, faithful husbands, impactful fathers, and proud alumni, then we've done our job. Along the way, though, there's just three goals. Number one, I want them to graduate. Number two, though, we want to win and have success, and that's in anything they're doing. I want them to have the best internships, the best grades, but we want to win on the field. And the last thing is to have a positive impact. So when they're down in Texas on a trip, when we're in Carthage in the away locker room, we want to make sure that we're representing, the image of one represents the image of all. And so that's the kind of football program we want to run. And our ethos is how you do anything is how you do everything. And it's not a catchy saying. It's reminding the young men that if it's worth doing to the best of your ability. And so I think with that in mind, if we can get lay that foundation and continue to build, I'm unbelievably excited about this opportunity, about the young men I get to coach, the young men we're recruiting, and especially the unbelievable alumni network that has continued just to reach out with kindness, but also support as they want to see exactly what you mentioned in terms of those competitive games and getting back to what Coach Esch and Coach Larson have established here in terms of great tradition.
Yeah, I mean, three coaches in 70 years, Swede Larson and Norm Esch, and now Jared Williamson. And so we wish you the best of luck. And like I said, when I was talking to Wags, who I respect immensely, again, he wouldn't tell me who he'd hired, but I could tell, boy, the smile, the look in his eyes, that he was really, really excited about the announcement that was coming and getting this rolling and who they had picked. And so we really are excited, Jared. And there's a lot of Titan football fans out there. I mean, a lot of buzz the last few weeks about like who they going to hire. Like this is a big deal. And so we wish you the best of luck. And I know you'll feel that support from the alumni network as you get yourself settled in. Folks, that is Jared Williamson. He's the brand new head football coach at Illinois Wesleyan University. Jared, thanks so much for your time today.
I really appreciate it, Bob. Thanks very much.